If you walked into a small village in Africa a few hundred years ago, then you probably would see there's a chief in the village, and there's a medicine man, and there's everybody else basically doing whatever they're doing. You see, the medicine men are pretty important. If you go back to the medieval periods, you of course had the church that was all important. You had the kings and everybody else, the farmers. And I think these days you have the same principle. You have the economists that are simply the high priests, that are magic makers, that are conjurers, that can for some reason explain events better and provide more comfort to the leadership than any rational or scientist. Because if the scientist, if the facts were important, then of course the scientists would be on the head of the advisory, and they would be in power. Basically, they would be influencing government. They're not. So it's not for the leadership or for anybody in society. It's not important whether something is true. It is important whether it is attractive and whether it allows you to not have to adapt too much. Because if you feel adequate and if you don't have to change everything in your life, that is preferable and that's easier to do than to throw over and change everything, like you will have to do when you are deep in debt and you suddenly have to kind of spend less and be less wasteful. And that's a worrying thing, because it basically means that you will always have a class of people that has a religion, a theory, and a theory that's so vague that it can explain everything with, let's say, little footnotes that you add later on. So first you say, well, the earth is flat, and then people go around it and then you say, yes, it's flat, but it has different bridges on the edges, so you can go from one side to the other. No, and all the while it's basically the real evidence that is provided by experience contradicts whatever the theory is, but it's easier for people to accept the small explanation of the person that has first proposed the theory, because that's a bigger body of knowledge that they're, let's say, basically used to, than to accept that they have to change everything and then think through all the consequences. That's basically too hard, that is too complex. And we all know that complex is, let's say, the stop word. If you don't want people to think about certain things, then you say it's complex. So let's say continuing on this route is a very complex issue, and destroying the planet is very difficult and complicated, and has many aspects that we yet have to kind of understand, and we don't really know. While it's much easier to go ecological and be more efficient with fuel and get rid of this oil addiction, which after all is a hugely a complex issue with all these countries that have the oil and stuff like that. Now, if people would talk about it like that, then it would be clear that it's the easiest way is to get rid of oil. So it's all about magic. It's all about simply messing up whoever. There's just people that are the guardians of the body of knowledge, the magical body of knowledge. And then there's the people that are trying to ascend towards equality with these more powerful people. And they're just led astray all the time. Like Greenspan says as well, this economical dip is a sign of recovery. That makes everybody that doesn't know his skill, that doesn't know that his business is to mess up minds of other people, so they become, let's say, that less of a danger. People that don't know that, they'll try to make sense of it, and of course you can't. So it messes up your senses, and that's how it works. So I thought it was interesting, and it's also worrying, of course, that there will never be, I think, a stable situation in society where it's not the magical thinkers that are in power, simply because it's the most attractive thing to have them in power, and it's most attractive to get people to do what you want. It's more important to have them follow you than to have them do something that's actually useful.